The people with the Savant syndrome deserve to be admired, so I decided to talk about it. The Savant syndrome, or most known as the Y syndrome, is a set of abnormal cognitive symptoms. This syndrome is a neuroconductual pathology because it affects the cognitive abilities of the individual, like speech, motor skills, and intellectuals. Many of the stereotypes about this syndrome appear to be exaggerated because people don't know the origin about this disorder. So, this syndrome occurs in those individuals that are diagnosed with neurodevelopment disorders that appear in the childhood, like autism or Asperger. Due to both are pathologies that affect the left hemisphere of the brain, who is the responsible of the understanding and interpretation of the language. Meanwhile, the right hemisphere is supposed to get a better development that has as a consequence the possibility to suffer this syndrome. However, if this pathology is to arise from bad injuries, it can affect the left hemisphere, having a minimal possibility to occur in the daily life. In addition, the hypothesis that explain the relation between the condition of the syndrome and the level of operation of each hemisphere is based on the research that Sugiyama T, Takei G, and Abe T did. A piece of this research is reflect on the magnetoencephalography of a kid who has this syndrome. Here, we can see that the channels of the right hemisphere have higher activity than the left one. According to the statistics from the American Psychiatry Association, the prevalence of the Savant syndrome is 1 in 450,000. This means that every 450,000 there's one person who suffers this syndrome. So it's really uncommon that people have this syndrome. There's nothing wrong with people thinking that individuals with this syndrome are blessed. But people think this due to the symptoms of this syndrome are strangely amazing because the patients present an increase on numerical and spatial abilities like increase on the ability to understand and interpret music, memorize calendars, and remember specific facts of each day. The ability to realize hard mathematical calculations. Having the facility to measure distance, memorize maps, places, and directions with only one look. And also the facility to learn more language. I think all this happens due to the big development that the right hemisphere of the brain gets, and therefore is the one who is the responsible of the spatial intelligence and analog skill. If the people with the Savant syndrome could describe themselves, they would say that are ordinary people. It doesn't exist a specific test to identify this syndrome yet, but the most common way is across the childhood period, through clinical and psychological interventions. These interventions are based on recognizing the characteristics and the ability of the patients to relate to this syndrome. If the kid is to have these symptoms, the parents should make him a diagnostic. There is no treatment for this syndrome yet, so in this case, the treatment that people with this syndrome receive is to cure the pathologies that cause this syndrome. An example, the treatment that is used to cure the autism or several brain injuries. It's important to clarify that the treatment depends on the person because it's necessary to identify the areas that are more damaged. The most common treatments are therapies related with the family, educative, cognitive skills, and behavior communication. Finally, the Savant syndrome, despite of being a pathology that pretends to increase some skills and abilities, it shouldn't be considered or mistaken as a gift because it's still a condition that hinders the patient's behavior and his natural communications. So, Derby, the best thing that we could do to help these people with this condition is to speak it up about it and educate the population so they get know about this rare condition. So hear your parents when they always insist on us accepting the people who are different from us. And the most important thing, we need to accept ourselves to accept the others, because if we don't, never would be normal. Welcome to the question sections. The first one is, have you met anyone with this condition? No, I haven't met anyone, but it would be interesting to meet someone with this syndrome. The second question is, yes, if your children or the person present some of the symptoms that I mentioned before, you could make him a diagnostic. But if you're referring to an official way to diagnostic only by being home, it doesn't exist. The third question is, yes, they could have, but it's the other way around. The people who have autism or another pathology that affect the left hemisphere have the possibility to suffer this syndrome. And also the people who have suffered some brain injury in the daily life. In generally, the difference between the autism and the Savant syndrome is that the people with autism suffer problems with communications that to relate with others, and the people with the Savant syndrome not only suffer the same symptom as the autism have, but also suffer the strangely but amazing symptoms that I mentioned before. And the last question is, it doesn't exist a symptom of the Savant syndrome that could affect the health of the patient of any age, but there is one, and it is the difficulty to relate it with the others, because the the hemisphere who is responsible of the communication skills is damaged. So that's all for today, and we'll see you on the next one.